typically when you're going to an outfitter, you're spending a lot of time with that outfitter and guides. And so I would encourage people when looking for an outfitter, make a phone call. If they, it starts online, you do that online search, get their contact information and have a phone conversation. Most people I would like to think most people have a pretty good gut feeling about things. And if you can talk to somebody versus just in text or email, it's going to give you a whole nother perspective on gauging your trust of them, right?
Welcome to Learn Online Security Podcast. I'm Tamara Michèle, your host, and we are happy to have you here with us today. We are meeting Melanie MacCarthy of North Mountain Adventures.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. I'm excited to be here.
Well, thanks for joining us. Today we are going to be discussing what folks should look out for when they're looking at securing or booking an outfitter.
Right.
Yeah, and then, just to tie it back to the whole cyber security, and how that affects people, because I'm sure when you're planning a trip, it's very extensive in the amount of money that you're going to be spending.
Correct.
You want to make sure that you're not sending your money to someone false.
That's correct. Yeah, and it's really no different than thinking of yourself booking a trip anywhere else. And typically it's international guests that are coming, or if you're going somewhere else, it's often an international experience. So it's easy to liken yourself to thinking that maybe you're going on a trip to Europe or perhaps Mexico or something like that. And so putting in your mind, what things are you looking for if you're going to do that? And so in this case, yes, it's outfitting. It is hunting or fishing typically. But if you think of it from that perspective, it's very similar in that you're going to be wanting to check a lot of boxes before you say yes to an outfitter.
So before we get into that, I want to know just a little bit more about you. I know you have your hands in lots of things. You're a very busy woman.
Yes.
If you can just tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. So my husband and I own and operate North Mountain Adventures here in the Parkland, so Oka River, Manitoba. It's kind of a complex thing at this point, to be honest. We started in 2014, and that really started as the outfitting side of it. So we were a pretty small family-run operation at that point. And the outfitting side of it has evolved quite a lot in the last 11 years. And so it's expanded quite a lot from what it was. But a couple of key shifts that we made were big one in 2020, which we all know what happened that year. We don't need to elaborate on that. However, we were in the process of a second cabin build at that point that was intended for the outfitting business. And with all that had happened, we took a big pause and then decided to switch gears and make that cabin into a rental. So both cabins are now rentals, Airbnb rentals available on our website as well. So that was a big shift. That started the fall of 2020. And then as well, 2021, another big change. My husband had this dream of filming his hunting and fishing adventures. And so that began in 2020 when he was started to film a lot of those experiences with a big dream of maybe getting picked up for TV one day. And that all happened very quickly, very unexpectedly and very quickly. And so in 2021, we signed with WildTV, a hunting and fishing network here in Canada. And so that has been a journey in itself, and season 4 is nearly wrapping up its first round, and we're into filming season 5 already. And so that's North Mountain Adventures side of things, which is always moving parts.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I understand you also do some, I'm not going to say freelance, but you donate your time.
Yes. So I am also currently president of our province's outfitting industry. So our Manitoba Lodges and Outfitters Association is what it's called. So I basically help lead a board of directors and our executive director on really just representing all of our province's lodges and outfitters here. So it is a big role. Again, lots of moving parts, lots of all of that public media sorts of kind of confusing representation advocacy stuff that happens in our outfitting industry. So I see things from both sides, obviously as an operator here in the province, as well as from that advocacy legislation side of things. So it's an interesting space to be in, but I believe it's a worthy cause. I believe in it, and I think our industry is important and a valuable piece of tourism here in the province. So I enjoy it. It's a lot of work, but I enjoy it.
Wow. So full life and lifestyle.
Yes. Very full. Very full.
That's amazing. So getting back to the actual looking for outfitters, and for people at home that are watching, wanting to know how do they know when they're going online that this outfitter is legit? I know we talked a little bit about the Airbnb, because you run an Airbnb, and so most people, and say even if you're booking to Europe, right?
Yep.
So you're going to book a trip to Europe, you can use like websites that are well known for being travel websites.
Correct.
Airbnb, if you book an Airbnb, if they have bad reviews, they're no longer operating. Yep. So they are legitimate. So how do people tell the difference when? I mean, there must be like a version of that or something, right? That's
an interesting point, actually. I hadn't considered that in, kind of thinking about this topic in advance. So ironically, there really isn't quite the exact same parallel in the outfitting industry. There isn't like a hub where you would go and, you're going to find reviews and all that sort of thing. The closest to that would actually be our Manitoba Lodges and Outfitters Association website. Now, that is a voluntary membership that folks have to that space, but you can go on there, MLOA.com, and see a list of outfitters who have a membership. And find a bit more information on them through that avenue. My first thought when looking for an outfitter in this space is going to be online, right? It's 2025. We're very much in the digital world at this point. And I'll touch on maybe just relationships in a moment, but website is going to be number one, I would say. If you're looking for an outfitter, and maybe you've heard of someone, for example, and you go and you do an online search and they don't have a website, that would be my first red flag, right? If you don't have a website in 2025, I'm not going to say that you're not a good outfitter, but it certainly doesn't give you the level of credibility that you probably should have. So that would be my first thing, is just doing an online search. And I would not I would encourage people to actually even go to the bottom, look who designed their website. There is nothing wrong with making sure that is legit, right? Because there is a lot of scams out there. Go to the bottom, see who's designed it, do a quick search on the web designer even, and know that they are legitimate. So yeah, I would say start with the website. Make sure that they have a good, credible looking website.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And I was very curious about that, just because I don't know a lot about outfitting, but I know that, you do have to, it's usually lodging, it's usually touring, right? Like you are depending on this person, it's somebody you would want to trust.
Correct.
Right? You don't want to go in completely blind.
Yeah.
So then you were talking about the second part of it, which I think is relationship.
Yeah, and I think this is honestly where a really good outfitter is going to shine. And this is going to be the biggest difference that you'll see compared to just booking a trip someplace. Typically, when you're going to an outfitter, you're spending a lot of time with that outfitter and guides. You should be able to get to know that person or that group very well by the end of your experience. And so it's natural that you're going to likely build a relationship through that experience. And so I would encourage people, when looking for an outfitter, make a phone call. If they, it starts online, you do that online search, get their contact information and have a phone conversation. Most people I would like to think most people have a pretty good gut feeling about things. And if you can talk to somebody versus just in text or email, it's going to give you a whole nother perspective on gauging your trust of them, right? And so that's something my husband and I really are proud of. We enjoy making, good friendships and relationships with our clients, and many of these folks end up feeling like family by the end of it, and will be coming back numerous times. So relationships is really the bread and butter of a good outfitting operation. Yeah.
And then it's interesting because I think about when it comes back to, you had said like international travel. One of the things that I have been doing for years, just with any place that I go, especially somewhere I'm unfamiliar with, is Google for Google reviews. So is there a place like because you can look up a business and then you can see, because it gives you sort of a timeline. So you can look back 9 months ago, a year ago. Like you'll have reviews, and the more reviews you'd have, you would assume, right? And it's from different people with different accounts.
Yes. So unfortunately, the answer to that is there is no currently, at least in our province, there currently isn't a hub where you can go and see those reviews for, a large group of different outfitters, for example. From my MLOA hat for a moment, I'd love to see that happen. I think we can get there. But taking a step back, again, going individually to those websites. So it is going to mean finding those folks first. You're doing maybe a search of Manitoba outfitters or whatever area you're looking to go to. And then finding them first through those Google searches. A lot of those outfitters probably do have Google reviews. But then taking a step back from that is social media, right? Mm-hmm. Again, we're in a generation now that if you don't have a social media page, that's another little bit of a red flag. Now, I will say the outfitting industry is probably known for having a lot of older folks that are running a business. Yeah. That's probably been a bit of a barrier for a lot of our outfitters to transition into this all of a sudden very digital world and to be able to compete or to, be
even
seen.
To cater.
Right, exactly. It's a very noisy space. And a lot of these folks are 45 to 75 running an outfitting business. They've been doing it for a long time, and suddenly they're thrust into this social media world and expected to have this. So it's not to say that if you don't have social media, you're illegitimate.
Correct. Yeah.
But again, it is something we really, really encourage our outfitters to have and encourage clients who are looking to take a quick peek on, Facebook and Instagram are your kind of universal ones, right? That everybody sort of knows. Take a peek there and see if you can find them there and see if they have reviews on their social media pages. We all know a lot of people like to voice their opinions on social media. So if there's something good or bad, that's probably a space you're going to find it.
For sure.
Yeah.
And then I think about, you talked about some of the outfitters that might be older, up in age, and they would probably be excellent outfitters because they've been doing it their whole life.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So how much of that would be based on referrals? I think that would be a huge part of your business.
100%. You nailed it. Yeah. And I think that could probably parallel to nearly any industry is word of mouth is always going to be your best advertising. So if you can have, let's take website and social media out of the mix completely. If you can run a really good operation, there's a possibility that you could run your business strictly on word of mouth and folks don't even feel the need to go online and check who you are. Mm-hmm. Good on you, really. At that point, good for you if that's where it lands. Getting new clients may not always keep up with just word of mouth alone. It's tough to say, but I would put a pretty good wager that a lot of those guys that have been doing it for a long time and just built their business on that relationships and word of mouth, they're doing okay that way and they're content doing it that way. So as that advisory note, it goes back to the phone call, right? It's not to say those folks are illegitimate, but give them a phone call, have a chat with them. If they're honest on the phone with you and just say, hey, I'm X amount of years old and I have no interest in having a website and social media. Here's what I've done. Here's what I've done for a long time. Here's a couple of people you can talk to get a reference. Great. Right? Yeah. That's one way of doing it.
And how small or how big is the outfitting world, even for like sport hunters and I was thinking that, if I had gone somewhere and had a really great experience with outfitting, whether I was brand new or I was experienced, and I went somewhere and I had this phenomenal experience and it was beautiful and, it crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's. Okay. That would be something that I'd be going back and talking to my friends about and saying, you have to go here. This is the place to go. Mm-hmm. Is it fair to say that people that are looking for outfitters, that would obviously be talking to your friends, talking to your colleagues or people who have the same interests as you?
100%, definitely. This kind of leans to that note. For an example, so when we started our business in 2014, we were brand new, right? It's just like any other business. You're starting from scratch. You're working to build a clientele. And so we started doing hunt shows, just like a vendor, like a craft sale, but it's all people that are in the outdoor tourism industry. So we started with that frame of mind and made it to Alabama and South Carolina and Iowa and did a bunch of different shows. So you just get your name out there, building your brand, that sort of thing. And then from that, you build your clientele, and then that's where you start to get your word of mouth, right? That's where you have folks that have come, they've had a great experience. Hopefully they've had a great experience. In our case, we're fortunate that way. And then they start to talk to your friends, right? And then their friends, and it slowly spirals. And then the need for doing those shows, in our case, sort of dwindled. It started to not make sense anymore because that word of mouth advertising kicked in, and it's a return on your investment that will never, it'll always pay dividends. It's a far better investment than it is to go and spend thousands on other forms of advertising if you can continue to build a business that way. And word of mouth is powerful. Yeah.
For sure it is. I agree. Yeah, 100%. I guess going back to cybersecurity and that aspect, is there anything that you've had any issues with when it comes to on your end, maybe not on their end, but on your end, things that you've had to watch for?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So you're referring to, us sort
your
of
own operations.
So us sort of screening clients, so to speak. Absolutely. We've had a couple actually where we had to be, it was again a gut decision. Something didn't feel right. In both cases, it was really just the questions that we were being asked. So good on them for, making those contacts. But the questions that were being asked made us uncomfortable. And you are, as outfitters, in many cases, you're inviting these people onto your property, potentially into your home. A lot of these businesses are family-run businesses, not all, but some of them are really big lodges. But it doesn't change the fact that they're in your space, and you're spending a lot of time with these folks. In some cases, placing them around other guests, other family members, and guides. And so, those questions were borderline inappropriate, made you feel uncomfortable. Gut decision said this doesn't feel right.
And it's definitely not a good fit, right?
It's not a good fit. That's right. And I'm grateful that those instances didn't happen real early in our business, because we may have felt compelled to sort of have to, because we were building a business. At this point, we're certainly still building, because we always have dreams of being different and new and bigger and these sorts of things. But we are in a space where we can say no if something doesn't feel right. And in those cases, we were able to just trust the gut and say this isn't a good idea. In one case, it was definitely confirmed to have been a good choice. It would have put us in a pretty dangerous situation. So, as outfitters, on the flip side, do your due diligence too. If something doesn't feel right, then...
So is there anything else that you would suggest for people that are looking to kind of button down when they're booking an outfitter?
I think the last couple of notes I'd want to encourage people to take a look at is, again, going back to the websites. If they do have a website, one thing I think that probably levels an outfitter up a little bit in a sense of just their professionalism, perhaps, is check out their website, see if they have anything listed as far as association memberships. So in Manitoba, that would include Manitoba Lodges and Outfitters Association. Every province has their own association of some kind, outfitting association, even local chambers. So maybe they're a chamber member. There's various different business associations in each province. And so just when folks are a member of those different things, it raises their credibility, so to speak, right? It means they're active and invested in their business growing. So those are one thing to look out for. And the other thing I would encourage people to consider, and this is outfitting industry as well as just any travel, having trip insurance is a smart idea. Hunting insurance, in this case, it's hunting, but a trip insurance. Things can happen. Anything can happen, right? And we've all seen, back in 2020, it was just an immediate halt to everything, to all international travel. So outfitting industry went from, everything to nothing. And so having trip insurance is a really smart move, just a smart plan. It's not a necessary thing, but just a recommendation.
Kind of an extra little layer of protection, hey?
That's right. Just a little layer of protection, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Our Heroes is our free community on our website. Become a member for free by clicking on the link in the description.